Thanks for joining today's webinar from Red Door. We're joining you live from our studio here in San Diego, California. Before we get started, just wanted to cover some quick logistics here. So first off, if you'd like to share this event with friends and colleagues, there's still time. So you can just use the link available in the chat window here. Second, feel free to ask questions throughout the session. You can use that questions window in the Zoom platform. And we've set aside time at the end for Q&A, of course. And then lastly, rest assured, we will be sharing a recording of today's session. So that doesn't have to be one of your questions in the Q&A. And we'll also share a copy of the deck so that you'll have the content here. So with that, let's jump right into today's session and plunge into the world of Gen AI and marketing. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So, unlocking the future of marketing, deep dive into Gen AI. For those of you that are new to Red Door, here's some background on us. So, Red Door is a full funnel marketing agency. We're delivering solutions to enterprise brands to really break through creatively and help those brands grow market share. We really believe that fusing brand building and performance marketing, that we can create winning futures together with our clients. And we're proud to have a client roster that features enterprise brands like Bosch, Titleist, Shea Homes, among many others. So your panelists today, Ron Hadler, joining me here. Ron's Red Door's Vice President of Data and Innovation. Ron has over 20 years of technology experience across platforms, programming languages, different verticals. He leads our web analytics team, our technical analytics team, and our marketing technology practice. And then I'm John Ferris. I'm president at Red Door. I lead our group of all-star creatives, devs, analysts, and cross-channel marketing experts. And with that, dive into the content here. So we're going to start with an overview of Gen AI. I think everybody's pretty familiar given the hype these days, but just give you a quick rundown. We're going to dive into some more practical tips around prompt engineering. I think that's why a lot of folks are here today, is to get that roadmap for how they can start using ChatGPT and other large language models and Gen AI platforms effectively. We're going to walk through some platform demos and examples of how you can kind of start to build a business and marketing strategy, and even some assets to get going from scratch. Hopefully that gets your brain's working on how you might be able to apply this for yourself. Then we're going to jump into integrating Gen AI into your business and some of the learnings that we've had along the way. Also talking about how you can actually take your business to the next level, a framework for thinking about integrating AI into the larger business for enterprise brands. We'll jump into some free and paid resources just to give you a sense of some of the things that are out there that you can learn more. And then we'll talk more about, really what's next and jump into Q&A. So starting with that overview, I'm going to kick it over to Ron to talk a little bit about machine learning, which is really the foundation.
Thanks, John. Yeah, machine learning is that term that you kind of hear a lot about, and really, that's what the foundation is for a lot of these exciting things that are going on with artificial intelligence or generative AI or Gen AI. But machine learning really is just the algorithms or models that are built, and you use the data provided that allow us to do predictions, essentially. And a lot of what we got going on here with artificial intelligence is about predictions. And that's everything from the ability to understand who's going to open your email, to how your Tesla is going to act when there's a small child in the crosswalk and what it needs to do. Do you hit the wall and kill yourself, or do you hit the child? Well, it's going to hit the wall each and every time. So these are things that what the right prediction is supposed to do. So this allows us to do a lot of interesting things with generative AI. That's, of course, predicting, things like what sentence follows the previous one, what word follows the previous one, what colors or objects are going to appear when you use the term Star Wars in a generative image platform. But really, what's important there is the ability to have the right amount of data, do training on that data, and that allows us to kind of build these models that act and improve our ability to market.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, so as a subset of machine learning, GenAI platforms, short for generative AI, like GPT-4, which if you didn't know what the acronym there stands for, it's Generative Pre-trained Transformer 4, version 4, and Google Bard, amongst others, use machine learning to generate content in the way that Ron just described, and hopefully the Tesla hits the brakes instead of the kid or the wall. But regardless of the overhype, I think that's happening right now in this space, these large language models and diffusion models on the kind of image and video side do have the potential to really revolutionize marketing. You can kind of see in the Gartner's hype cycle here that we are at peak hype in 2023 around AI in general, and with generative AI being really that peak hype moment. But that being said, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be jumping into generative AI, understanding how it works, playing around with it, because really within this Gartner hype cycle, the people that do experiment, who are those early adopters, really start to build that foundation that becomes a competitive advantage when we kind of get through the trough of disillusionment and back into that slope of enlightenment and ultimately plateau of productivity there. So, right now we're at this moment where we're in a actually very, as fun as these tools are to play with and as effective as they actually can be today for marketers in particular, that we're in a very rudimentary state. Like, this is just the beginning of something that's going to be amazing, in the future, not just for marketing, but for society at large. And GPT is great. We're going to spend plenty of time there today, but there's more tools coming online every single day, and they span all of these different categories. So, GPT is great for text. There's other large language model, text-based content platforms such as Bard, such as Claude by Anthropic, Poe from Quora, and many others that there are to play around with, and they all have their different strengths. And breaking news, ChatGPT has moved on from just being that single mode text-based platform, and now there's visual elements. You can upload spreadsheets and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So some of that is in beta now on the visual side, but I think in the next few weeks it's rolling out to all the pro users, right, Ron?
Correct. Yeah, here in October, multi-mode.
Yep. And then you have more the diffusion models, which allows you to generate images, things like Midjourney and other tools there. Video is definitely emerging, so being able to create animated videos off of stock, even be able to create live action, almost real looking video. People are familiar with deep fakes, but bringing that to the masses, which is both exciting from a marketing perspective, but scary in a more of a political context or a personal context. Code generation, chatbots, which have been around for a long time, but that are really supercharged at this point, and able to provide, really great contextual examples based off of data that you feed it. And then we talked about the ability today to be able to upload a spreadsheet to GPT and have it do some rudimentary analysis and create even charts for you, that sort of thing. And then other applications outside of marketing, things like gaming, drug development, language learning, in terms of being able to do translation or even tutor your kid on, learning Spanish. So benefits of using generative AI in your daily work, really, obviously, that increased efficiency, productivity, the ability to bring things to market very quickly is a key aspect to it. Now, enhanced technical, creative, and analytical capabilities. So not just being able to do things faster, but also to a higher degree of quality. I think, in fact, a recent study, it was a management consulting firm, said that you could increase the quality of your output by 40%, something like that. So pretty exciting there. And then this just gives us as humans, don't underestimate us, and our ability to evolve with alongside technology, the ability to focus more on strategic iteration, testing, and optimization. And really, the possibilities are limitless.
Limitless.
If you like a good movie pun. So wanted to ask you all a question about how frequently you're using GenAI tools and get a sense for, who we're talking to here and how experienced you all are so far in this last, 9 or 10 months since GPT really came on the stage. Cool. So almost 60% of you are using it daily, 22 weekly, 17 occasionally, and those 4% of late adopters, not at all. We're going to get to you in this presentation. You'll be a pro in no time. So I'm going to dive into now prompt engineering and give you some tips here. I'm going to kick it over to Ron for that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, prompt engineering, what that really means is in order to get output from all these platforms, you need to provide input. And that input and the discipline around that is called prompt engineering. So really, that's what we're trying to do, is give you a little bit of tools or processes in order to up your prompt engineering game. So if we just kind of move to the next slide, and really, kind of the things that are important here are, expertise, task, steps, context, goal, and format. And so the first one's really, I consider one of the most important, which is how to act like an expert, whether that's, how to act like a paid media expert, how to act like an SEO expert, how to act like the VP of data and innovation. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that comes across with the paid version of something like a Chat GPT is the ability to put pre-instructions into the platform. What that allows you to do, instead of having to put those prompts in each and every time, act like a paid media expert, it allows you to put that, so you're always kind of going from that viewpoint. But it also allows you to add interesting things such as writing styles and stuff like that. These are things that you would normally put into your prompt. So you give the ability and give it, the more you put into it, the better quality or higher quality you're going to get out of it. So, the next thing really is to describe that task. Give a lot of details as to what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe there's multiple steps that need to take place in order for you to achieve that output. Then give the context around it. What are those things really that they need to understand? Is it, who the audience is there a goal? And then, really kind of the format, the output. I want a list of bullets. I want 4 paragraphs. I need 3 pages. It can do all of these things just as quick as the other. So really kind of giving it that full-fledged input gets you the high quality outputs, reduces time, reduces cycles, but you can also have it examine its output and provide suggestions. So iterating is really, really important when it comes to prompt engineering. So just kind of some tips and things like that to help prove that is just saying things like challenging conventional narrative, like tell me something unusual, get something that's on the edge of understanding. That kind of forces it to just, stray off the well-worn path. Provide an example. Here again, this is where like writing styles and understanding that I want, these writing platforms to imitate my style so that it sounds like me, and then you can also just use it to iterate and say, what would you suggest that I need? Use it as a tool to help you provide that output. And specificity is important. Understanding that it understands, English very well. Something like a hot dog is, might give it a little bit of confusing. Are you talking about a dachshund on fire, or are you talking about the meat in tube form? So really being an understanding of that is being very specific and understanding English. It understands English better than you do, for at least most of those folks. And then really, kind of a little bit of weariness here in things like math is kind of getting on the edge of what something like a chat platform will understand. There are plugins you can use for things like that, but it's not going to necessarily get complex math and give you a good output. Also, always check your answers for any facts and features. These platforms do hallucinate. That doesn't mean they're on mushrooms. What it means is that they're getting things wrong. So it's important to check your facts when you're dealing with these generative platforms.
And in certain circumstances, you say wrong, but it could just be creative, maybe, in its interpretation. I did want to cover two things here. So scold and question. In terms of the initial output you got, you talked about iterating on prompts and kind of that chaining versus maybe just dumping everything into the initial prompt.
Yeah,
speak a little bit more to that.
Sure, and a couple of those things. Even one, kind of the scold is an interesting approach. Is really just kind of telling these platforms where they're wrong. So in other words, saying, hey, this is not right. You need to fix this. It will respond and prompt to and fix a lot of times what's going on. This is also in even how we're doing code development within these platforms allows us to say, hey, this provided an error. I pop in the error that I got, and it'll fix the code and address that error. So it's iterating through this. One-shot prompts are great, but understand that iteration is really the power here, because you can go through them very quickly to get an output, which something that might take you 3 hours, you can do in half an hour. So really being able to do that. The other thing is that sometimes it will just stop in the middle of its output, and you can do something as clearly as, hey, can you finish this last 2 bullet points I asked about? And it'll provide those very quickly.
Got it. Yeah, and something I've found a lot of success with is providing examples too. And if you provide multiple examples, I think it's been shown to be even much more effective than just providing a prompt alone.
Absolutely. Details matter here, and really getting those right and them in there provides those quality high outputs.
You talked about the custom instructions. Can you tell people how to get to that in ChatGPT?
So for those who, this does take a paid account in ChatGPT in order that either individual or enterprise versions of that, and then it's available if you look at the bottom left hand of your screen where your account name is, and in the settings you can put those instructions, and you have 2 different inputs there. One for the ability to give your background and style, and then the other ones is type of outputs that you want. So you can really kind of dig in and provide those details, and it really allows you to customize. So that way, when you're doing your input, you're really just focusing on the specific question you're trying to get answered.
And then in terms of those beta features, can you speak to some of those that are available today and coming down the pike?
Yeah, so with and this is again to ChatGPT, is multi-mode. Right now, you had essentially just text prompts. You will be able to here in October, for those folks who are paid accounts and enterprise, the ability to input an image. This allows you to do some really interesting things. I've seen examples of this where somebody inputted a web page drawn on a napkin, and ChatGPT has essentially outputted the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS code to build that web page. So some really, really pretty interesting things. It can also do like understand what's in the image, extract things. Really fascinating, and this is just the beginning of multi-mode prompts. The other thing is the ability to analyze, as John mentioned, spreadsheets of data. Warning, making sure that you're not putting in customer data, PII into these platforms right now, still the right precaution.
And then something that popped up in mine, I haven't gotten the access to the visual yet. I'm excited for that in the next week or 2.
Yes.
But the ability to browse the internet with Bing. So finally giving GPT that access to the internet without a plugin.
Right. And that what we have is that, when they trained this model, they had a cutoff point of, was originally in 2021. I think now we're kind of bled into 2022. But this gives us updated information, right? Because before you type in, oh, what's the news of today? What's the stock price of today? And it was just limited. So now with the ability of accessing the web, you can get up-to-date information for things like that.
And I found like having that toggled on, you do have to ask it like, hey, access the internet and see if you can give me an answer. It's basically right now searching Bing for the answer.
Correct.
Which maybe isn't the most exciting feature. I'd give it like maybe a B, but exciting nonetheless. And then I did see that Claude from Anthropic, which is another large language model, has included a training set that goes up to early 2023. So if you're looking for something a little bit more up to date and you don't want to just use Bing through GPT, then Claude is Claude 2 is an option there. And
didn't AWS just invest billions into that platform?
Yep.
So yeah,
they're coming up for sure. And then, on the diffusion model side of things, so creating visuals, can you give some tips for prompts there as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, really with this, it's very similar to just the, text output, in that you want to really kind of make sure that you understand, a subject, whether that's person, animal, character, things like that, the visual types. Is this a photo, painting, illustration, 3D model? It can do all of those things. Talk about the environment. Is it a sunny day? Is it rainy, overcast? Are you in an urban setting, country setting? Then, talk about the lighting, sunset, dusk, sunrise, then colors, and then mood, and then to talk about that composition. Do you want to focus in on a headshot? Do you want a bird's eye view? All of those things will really, really impact the way that the output is. The other thing is that if you're familiar with old school film, not digital, and like Agva 400 and how that impacts the quality of output, those things are understood by these platforms, and it will change the output for those things. Even doing something as silly as saying in a Wes Anderson style. And I do have an example of that later on to kind of show, you'll see the impact of just saying something like that as it has on the output.
And then watch out for people with 6 fingers or
yes. One of the things they're still doing. Anything right now that's written words, it outputs what I call it like AI gibberish. It's just a bunch of capital letters meant to look like a title or word, but it actually doesn't spell anything. Those things are being solved. We will have that as a kind of thing in the past fairly quickly.
And if you didn't catch all of those things around the specifics around description style composition, I would say like ChatGPT would be a great platform to go ask, like, hey, what are some of the options I should think about in developing an image when I'm describing it or developing a unique style or composition?
Yeah, OpenAI just they're putting out Diffusion 3.0. And so what this is going to give is that it's really combining ChatGPT and a diffusion image creator. And so really what you're going to do is just the removal of kind of prompt engineering for image development platforms. So instead of having to kind of go back and forth and iterate a lot, you're going to have ChatGPT there to kind of guide you through this prompt engineering. This is why, we say that prompt engineering is important now, less so in the future. It will go away. They will remove the ability, and the platform will prompt you instead of the other way around.
Yep. And there's some simple tools out there. This is more on the large language, the tech side of things, like a Jasper, right? That basically dumb it down to the point where you can select from some pre-selected voice and tones, some functional kind of requirements, like I want something to be SEO friendly, that sort of thing. So there are tools out there that are already kind of like simplifying things for users. It seems like we'll be headed there, but not necessarily dumbing it down, providing all sorts of refinements that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of these platforms are targeted at a specific market. Some folks want more control, more ability, and those require, more skill set. And those who, just really want to kind of get to the end point, you want one of those that's helping you prompt, that's aiding you in that to get to, your end goal. And this is really all about speed. And, those ones that hit you right for your skill set is what you should be using.
Yep. Got it. A few more kind of tips here on the visual prompts?
So, with the visual prompt, just following that kind of order of entry, making sure you get things stacked right, and making sure that you are, essentially giving it the endpoint in mind, and make sure that that is the right focus. You have the ability with a lot of these image platforms to include negatives, such as really making sure that there's no animals appearing in it if you don't want any animals going there. One little tip there is don't be overly eager with the negatives, because then you'll end up something that you really don't want. But you can include negatives to kind of omit things. And then here again, English is important. Sentence structure, commas, dashes, exclamation points, all those things are taken into account in how this develops those images. Punctuation matters.
So now that we've kind of talked about some of the tips, let's dive into some examples, shall we? So here we're using GPT-4, like I mentioned at the outside of the presentation, to kind of start from scratch in a startup environment. In this example, we're talking about the sports and lifestyle vertical. And I just asked ChatGPT, I want you to help me develop a business and marketing plan for a new sports relief cream that provides cooling relief for sore muscles and joints. What questions can I answer first to help you give me the best information and recommendations? So I'm employing that tip, multiple tips actually that Ron spoke about earlier, which is I'm setting up the expertise. I want GPT to act as a startup specialist in this particular vertical. I've given it the context of the product that I'm wanting to bring to market. And then I'm using that tip where I actually say to GPT, like, feed me some questions back that I need to answer so that you, GPT, can give me the best response. And so this was actually the initial response that GPT gives back. It lists out 10 different categories of questions. It provides all sorts of sub questions within those categories that an expert would want to ask in a discovery phase. I'm not going to rattle through all of these, but I'll leave them up for a moment here if you want to read through them. And then the trick here is I said back to GPT, okay, I'm feeling a little bit lazy today. I don't have time to answer all of those questions. I'm going to tell you more about the product details and the brand identity. And I go on to speak to the target market that I'm trying to reach. And then I want you, GPT, to answer the questions that you asked, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. And then to provide it back to me in a table format. So I'm using that formatting tip that you mentioned earlier, Ron, because I'm a lover of tables and spreadsheets, and it just organizes things really nicely. And I'm able to copy and paste that right into Excel. Actually, now you can just ask it to give you an Excel file, and it will do that. So you no longer have to copy and paste, which is nice.
I think one of the key things here that you're illustrating is just, this is a conversation, right? This is not just a, I answer, make a prompt and get an answer, is that you're having a conversation. It's able to reference the output that it's had before and improve upon that. And that's really kind of the power of the conversation of these chat platforms.
Yeah, for sure. And at times, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes it will stop kind of right in the middle. Other times it may get a little bit lost and you might start getting some funky responses. If that's the case, generally I'll just, grab all the pertinent information that it provided so far, and I'll start a new chat. And that can be a really effective way to continue getting more out of it. Don't give up just because, and I think that will start happening less and less, but don't give up just because that happens.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Just don't mix subjects. Start a new chat for each time you've got a separate question.
So then GPT actually provided pretty good answers for all of these things that I just said, hey, how about you make some assumptions and give me some good information here. It came back, provided hypotheticals for all of these. I checked these hypotheticals. They felt pretty good. Like, they're not perfect, but I'm doing this over the course of 15 minutes instead of 15 hours. So pretty happy with the response here. And then I asked, now that I kind of understood, I knew what the product was, who I was trying to reach, and that GPT, provided a bunch more assumptions that are going to be helpful. I want to now understand a little bit more about the competitors and the industry and what the total addressable market, the serviceable addressable market, and the service obtainable market are. These are all kind of venture capital kind of acronyms that investors are looking for to understand, is this opportunity really, is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak? GPT came back, and in this case, it didn't want to give me specifics. It did do a good job of explaining what each of these acronyms were about and how I could go about calculating them. It gave me some hypothetical numbers that, on the surface aren't terribly off, probably, but they weren't well researched, right? It didn't, in this case, go out to the internet and go find all those things. Now, today, as of this week, I might be able to use Bing to, through ChatGPT to do some more of this research for me. In this case, I went out to another platform called Agent GPT. And like I was talking about earlier, I grabbed some of that pertinent information, that table actually that GPT gave me. I plugged it into Agent GPT. Agent GPT is what's called an autonomous AI agent. And this is going to become much more powerful in the future. This is, again, a very rudimentary version of what it will be in the future. But essentially, autonomous AI agents allow you to give a broad task, and the agent decides for you what are all the subtasks that it would need to accomplish in order to achieve your broader aim. And then it actually goes out and starts to execute on those subtasks. In this case, it's doing two things to execute. It's going through the API back to GPT-4, or probably 3.5 in this case, to go grab many answers. So it's doing a bunch of prompting back and forth with GPT. So I don't even have to do that, which is pretty interesting. It's a computer talking to a computer and trying to get better and better responses. And then it is also going out and crawling the web, presumably through a search engine, and bringing back relevant responses. And you can actually see it all happening in real time. So you're seeing it try to execute all these subtasks. And when I was watching it do this, it executed probably 30 different subtasks. I did see it kind of start to get caught in a loop, and that is a function of it just being a pretty rudimentary thing right now. But nonetheless, it gave me back some pretty interesting responses. So it went out and told me, hey, here's some of the sources that you might look to provide that total, the TAM, SAM, and SUM. Ibis World, which I know to be a credible source. We've used that in the past to do industry research. Grandview Research, I jump in and take a look at their site, legitimate provider of data for different verticals in the sporting good market. And then another set of tasks, this is kind of what it's showing me in real time as it's coming back. Then it starts to dive in and actually provide some specific data points, which was super helpful. So it's going in, scraping web pages and pulling back information from those web pages, so I don't have to do that myself. It did find that in this very last point of this second screenshot, that CBD salves have gained popularity among athletes for muscle and joint creams. So while I didn't mention CBD, I had mentioned arnica and menthol and peppermint, these cooling mechanisms. It came back and said, like, hey, you might consider this, which is pretty interesting from a product development and a marketing perspective. And then on another subtask, it actually started coming back with some tangible numbers here. So the US, if I go skip down, about halfway here, the US topical pain relief market is projected to reach 3.2 billion by 2027, driven by the rise in prevalence of arthritis and other joint problems, et cetera, et cetera. It gives me the compound growth rate of 7%. So it's pulling some real numbers back that I can put into my pitch presentation for the VCs that I'm about to do. And very importantly, and what what GPT is not doing right now, outside of the Bing functionality, is that it's providing me with sources. So these are clickable links. I can actually go and vet these sources and ensure that I'm not just getting a hallucination. So from there, I kind of understand like, hey, this is a viable opportunity. It's got a great target market or size of market for me to go after. I've got a sense of who my audience is, what some of the other assumptions are around the competitive landscape, the regulatory environment, all the things that were in my table earlier. And now I want to actually come up with a brand name and a tagline. And so very quickly, again, I feed back to GPT some of those details that that I had accumulated through my agent GPT and my chat GPT iterations there, and ask it to come back with 10 brand names and 10 tagline ideas. And I liked number 5, Sport Flex, not terrible. And from a tagline perspective, number 9 there, next level relief for active lifestyles, seemed to fit the target market that I had defined and what we're offering here. So could we have come up with something better, you know, with an exhaustive study? Yes, I'm sure we could have. But in order, you know, we talked about earlier, speed to market is really critical. And if I'm in a pitch presentation with VCs, I'm trying to probably give them just a sense of where we're headed here. I'm not necessarily trying to land on the final. So we've got a name, we have a tagline. Let's think about advertising. And so, Ron, we jumped into Midjourney. What did that look like?
So yeah, so Midjourney is a visual platform that allows you to use a prompt to produce actual visuals. And so, you know, what we have here on the right is an example and output of that. What I used as a prompt was advertisement sport cream featuring professional female athlete in Olympic setting in San Diego, 8K cinematic. And the way that Midjourney works is it spits out 4 different versions, so variations based upon what the prompt that I put in. So I got, you know, 4 female athletes in a kind of an urban setting. I see some palm trees, so maybe that's kind of San Diego-like. So I decided to switch that up on the next prompt, and all I did was change out in San Diego's Mission Bay. And so you can see the kind of the drastic background changes. Okay, now we got some water. It's looking a little bit more like San Diego. Also, we also see that all of the athletes are holding some sort of sports cream bottle. So that was definitely a difference. Then moving to kind of the next example, and here it is. This is the Wes Anderson style. All you can see, everything's now a creamsicle, right? Everything those really kind of lovely colors. And so, you know, and you've got different sort of folks also. And then, you know, everybody's got that sort of a cream in their hand. So definitely can kind of impact by using those styles. Then moving to the next prompt, what I did was I can take one of those images that it produced for me and say, give me some variations on that particular image. And that's what I did. All I did was, it's the same exact prompt, just said, give me variations. And so now I've got, you know, the same type of individual, because you can see that these are 4 different individuals that are in this, but they're all holding the sports cream. They're all dressed similar, but they are different individuals. And the last one, just really, this was the ability to kind of get an Instagram post. And just, you know, I changed up the prompt, shows an athletic mom on Torrey Pines Golf Course, holding sports cream and golf club in San Diego, brilliant sunny day, wide angle lens, 8K cinematic. What you can probably notice that there's golf club missing from this individual, could not quite get a golf club to show up. Also, the sports cream looks a little bit like a coffee cup, which has probably influenced the fact of the amount of Instagram posts of females holding a coffee cup. And then we also had ChatGPT come up with the tagline.
Yep. So in the Instagram caption here from Torrey Pines to the end of the back 9, Sports Flex keeps this golf mom swinging under the San Diego sun, hashtag golf life, hashtag pain-free play. So it came up with, it knew that on Instagram it should come up with hashtags. Again, not perfect. We could have iterated on this, but pretty interesting for a first shot there.
Right. And generated in seconds.
Yep.
So kind of moving away from the text and the visuals, Google put out a platform called Music LM. And so what this allows you to do is instantly create music based upon prompts. You know, you can go right in and it doesn't cost anything. It's free to use, but it really kind of outputs these things fairly quickly, gives good beats and rhythms. And it's pretty easy if you need just some background music to go on. But it'll, you know, like the first one here, the example is the main soundtrack of an arcade game. It's a fast paced and upbeat with a catchy electric guitar riff. The music is repetitive and easy to remember, but with an unexpected sounds like cymbal crashes or drum rolls. And these things are legit. You know, it does have those things. Now, is this going to rival a symphony? Is going to rival a live band? Of course it's not. But, you know, this is, you know, EDM like electric dance music. So you can kind of get out those rhythms pretty quickly and iterate on them and create sort of that soundtrack for whatever you're trying to illustrate.
Yep. And then from there, you know, we're going from static assets. Maybe we want a video asset. We're going to run CTV ads, or even ads, just, you know, video ads on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. So had ChatGPT create a 30-second video script featuring a doctor touting the product and its premium pain relief ingredients. It spit out actually on the very first try, a pretty decent 30-second script that included the tagline, and made up a second tagline, which was get back in the game at the end there, which wasn't a bad little addition. And then, and I'm not going to share it here just because the audio may not come through great, but check out synthesia.io. We went on to create an actual video ad using this doctor, using the script that ChatGPT had spit out. And essentially this is an AI avatar. Think of it kind of like a commercial version of a deep fake. That's just going to read whatever text that I input. And you can see kind of how things are going to animate in. Again, this took me all of 3 minutes to create. It took 15 minutes to process the video on the back end. But in terms of my time, it was very quick. I would say something, you know, room for improvement still on the dubbing. It's kind of like a bad kung fu movie from the 70s, maybe a little better. But this is going to improve over time. And it's pretty exciting because you actually, if you dare to do it, can create an avatar of yourself, and then just at will be able to create any video just based off of text that you input. So pretty exciting stuff. So we walked through some of these tools. Want to hear from you all. What generative AI tools have you tried or are you actively using before we jump into integrating GenAI into your workflow and business strategy from kind of a little bit more of a practical perspective? We've got OpenAI, which is obviously ChatGPT, DALL-E, Claude, now Claude 2.0, Bard, Google's large language model, which not great yet. It seems like Google's got some work to do, but they have a new platform coming down the pike, right?
Yeah, here before the end of the year, we should see that, and it has multimodal. I think that's, you know, we've been waiting for multimodal and GPT-4 to come out here for many months. They announced it, I think, was clear back in like April or something. And so here again, Google's going to come out with their platform that will be here at the end of this year, and that it will already be up to where GPT-4 is now. So I think we should see some improvements. Plus, their integration with their search engine really makes that powerful.
Yep. And that's Gemini, right? Is
Correct.
The new platform.
Gemini.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for Gemini. Looks like we got a heavy GPT audience here. Nobody's tried Claude yet. Check it out. If it's known to maybe have a little bit more of a empathetic human tone out of the gate without kind of asking it to do that than GPT does. We've got some people using GPT through Bing, some Mid-Journey users. Adobe Firefly is like a Mid-Journey, right?
Yes.
It But what's kind of the main differentiator
So
there?
it's built into Adobe Photoshop, so you can kind of just readily take images and things like that you're working on, and allows you to, kind of like insert flowers in the middle of a photo, or, a leopard drinking water out of a small pond. All of those things are really, really easy to do. And the one thing about images created like in a Mid-Journey or these other platforms is they're not copyrightable. And because they are AI generated, the difference with Adobe's platform is that it is based on licensed images. So they are able to copyright those images. Big, big difference in how you approach some of your end creative there.
Very cool. All right. Integrating generative AI into your daily workflow.
And this is really kind of the crux of what we're getting to. Really, how do we take advantage of these platforms, John? How do we, need for speed, essentially, right? Because that's what the object here is, getting through what you need to do at a quicker pace, and make sure that you are identifying those right tasks, especially if you're just dipping your toe into the Gen AI world. Make sure you have clear goals as to what you want to achieve by integrating these platforms. Is it reduction in speed, reduction in mistakes, leveling up of skills of junior or mid-level folks, and then make sure you're choosing that right A platform. Most everybody's got a little bit of exposure to ChatGPT than Mid-Journey, but make sure you're looking around, because these platforms are iterating at a fast pace, and they are growing, and we're going to get more and more specialized platforms for your specific tasks. Make sure that you are giving it the right type of data, that it can be trained to meet your specific needs. We talked about those specific pre-instructions for ChatGPT. And the other thing is, monitor and adjust. Make sure you got a feedback loop, that you are improving upon prompts. If you have good prompts, share those prompts. The other thing is just here again, PII, personally identifiable information, customer specific identifiable data, not good to put in these platforms. They still want to make sure that they say they're not, integrating them into the model, but those are definitely still risks right now. The also are now having parts of websites which can deny these spiders for these Gen AI platforms to gobbling up all the content that's out there, both image and text. And so the other thing is just that there is bias built into these. As an example, for Mid-Journey, I used just the word business person specifically, and what I ended up getting was images of white males, right? So those are, kind of this bias built in. There are humans behind all of these things that are programming. Even the fact of the amount of images posted have bias in the sense there.
The training set itself, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then one of the last things here is just making sure you're establishing a policy, especially as marketers, of when you are using these generative platforms to produce deliverables. That way it's an understood that, we are using these platforms as a tool in our toolbox. And the other thing is just, make sure that you are staying legal and ethical in your use of these.
So in terms of the policy, like giving people a sense of how to use it, using some of the tips that you shared on prompting, so that they're getting actually high quality outputs, but then also disclosure that they are using it, especially if the output that they're passing on came directly from a generative AI platform.
Right. Raw output. I mean, and that's really, we're not suggesting you should use raw output for a lot of these things. You should use it as a first pass, a first draft, and then, make sure you are styling and getting all of that ready.
Got it. Yeah. And then in terms of business strategy, there's kind of three modes that you could be in: optimize, accelerate, and transform. And this is courtesy of sectionschool.com. They have, and I'll share some resources here, but they've got a whole course on this topic. So if you're interested in learning more, you can check them out. So starting with a lot of what we're talking about today, which is like, how do you optimize your workflow? How do you maybe accelerate output and quality through the use of GPT, Mid-Journey, etc. And then getting actually into potentially transforming your business using AI, which is kind of a no-brainer for SaaS or for software as a service organizations, right? If you're working with a SaaS today and AI isn't on their roadmap, like, you should probably look for another solution.
I'd say for almost any platform at this point.
Yeah. And even for any type of business, there is the potential to leverage generative AI to actually create a new product or service line, if not enhance an existing product. So that could accelerating could be like offering a user interface to customers that allows them to query against a data set that's proprietary, right? Whereas transforming would actually be like creating your own middleware for your vertical that taps into a large language model, either open source like a Llama, which is from Meta, or an enterprise one like GPT. I think we're going to see an explosion in that middleware. Do you want to explain just really quickly in the last minute here or so what middleware is, how it pertains to this?
Yeah,
space?
so really, that's the processing power in the middle between kind of input and output. So really what that is it's contacting through all of these different platforms and doing the processing and producing, giving it to like a ChatGPT to take the outputs of that and put it into an understandable platform. So it's just doing all the processing. Like the agent GPT is kind of a middleware, right? Yeah. It's reaching out to the web, it's reaching out to ChatGPT to get that output once it's understood, from the web, maybe the really important facts and links that it can incorporate into the answer.
And so middleware has both like so something like GPT is a very broad and general model. It's got like hundreds of billions, if not trillions of internet pages, database pages, all these things in its database.
Correct.
And then it's trained as a general model. These middlewares for something like, let's say, the legal industry or the healthcare industry might use all the language generation capabilities of a broad model, but trained on a much narrower data set, or biased towards that data set that's like healthcare specific. What are all the regulations from the FDA, for instance, or in law,
specific on like environmental law. And
yeah.
You could, if you're that sort of firm, be making sure that you've fed the model everything there is about environmental law. Yeah. Like right now ChatGPT can pass the bar exam in most cases, right? Because that's a kind of a general understanding of law, so it understands that. But you may need to feed it those specific things about and environmental law, and eventually it'll understand all law, and maybe there's a specific output or platform that is specific to lawyers. I'm sure those things are in the work now, but yes, a very specialized models for specialized groups or verticals of knowledge.
And so that's what we talk about in this kind of this most mature transform stage. It's gonna cost you millions of dollars. You're going to be hiring data scientists and really developing something that's an AI first product
specific for you.
So taking a step back, if you want to learn more about generative AI, we've got kind of some resources here that span kind of different preferences for how you like to consume data. The Neuron Daily is a great newsletter. Lex Friedman is long form podcasts, like talking about 3-hour interviews with the most important people in this space, from Sam Altman to Zuckerberg to I think Elon Musk might be coming on soon. Short form podcasts and very specific to marketing. There's the Marketing AI show, which is put on by the Marketing AI Institute. That's a weekly podcast that just keeps you up to date on all the latest news. And there's a lot of news in this space popping up every week. If you're a TikToker, you could check out RileyBrown.ai as a profile. And, the longer you dwell on some of these AI videos, the more TikTok's going to include that type of content in your feed. So enjoy or beware, I suppose. Tool suggestions. So futuretools.io is actually keeping a running list of all of these tools broken out by vertical. And we have in this deck a bunch of links to all of the verticals that were in that infographic that we shared at the beginning. But Future Tools keeps that list
as of like 60 days ago, is that like almost 300 tools.
Yeah, it's probably at 5,000 now. Google has a whole AI handbook, and we talked about kind of the virtues of Claude. We talked about Bard kind of being at the bottom of the list right now. Section School has a great LLM guide for that breaks down kind of the merits and gives a 5-star rating for each of the tools that are out there, and that's on Google Sheet. So they're keeping that up to date, which is really cool. And then there's a couple of online courses here you can check out from the Marketing AI Institute that I mentioned earlier, as well as Section School. Section School's pumping out a lot of good AI content right now, Gen AI content right now. Ron, you want to leave us with some words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, I think really the important part, a lot of people are really kind of worried about, is AI going to take my job? And I think you just need to kind of adapt to an AI first mentality. The concept of a blank page or I don't know where to start should be gone. If you don't know where, ask a question of GenAI just to get the ball rolling. This is kind of a bit of a watershed moment. This is the, so far killer app of the AI wave of technology coming at us. And it's like the handheld calculator did for us, the personal computer, smartphone. These are just kind of really transformative technologies that are, catapulting us into or rocketing us into the future. And this is an exciting time. Things are happening fast.
So you can either be the woman in the walker or
the
strap on your
Mandalorian.
jets, right? Yeah.
Don't get left in the digital dust. Embrace.
So we're going to kick it over to Q&A here in the last few moments. Answer this one. For companies just starting with Gen AI, which application would you recommend they begin with? Any thoughts there, Ron? I mean, clearly GPT is kind of the go-to for a lot of people right now.
I think it's pretty easy to get to and go on and gets, kind of high quality answers. So I have no problems recommending that as an easy kind of go-to. On the visual side, Midjourney is another really popular tool that's pretty easy to kind of get in there. Lots of feedback, lots of examples and articles on how to get the most out of it.
Yeah, and maybe Firefly could be even a better place to start there from Adobe, just simply because you don't have to get a Discord account and kind of go through the learning curve on that. You can jump right in. If you Google, dare I say, Adobe Firefly, they have a free beta version right now that people can play with, even if they don't have that Photoshop suite.
Completely.
All right. With new tools emerging in the Gen AI space, how do businesses decide which tool or platform is right for their needs? I think, like we talked about, that middleware thing, if you're looking to use it seriously and at scale, then investigating what middlewares kind of exist in your space today and maybe getting into those early. Any other suggestions there?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to solve problems, like that, which are very specific, you need to kind of have a set of requirements first and understand that, and then evaluate those platforms against the requirements. Their ChatGPT has an API that allows you to do quite a bit with. So I think, you've really kind of got to set and have a kind of a project set out versus just kind of picking one that's above or anyone other.
Christopher asks, why were Gen AI tools not able to access the web until recently? It's a good question.
They really just didn't have that capability. It was a walled garden, if you will. And so, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation even out on the web. And so how do you make sure, from a non-search company, which, OpenAI, makers of ChatGPT, is not, how do you understand that? And so they had a little bit of a disadvantage. That's where Bing came in and helped them kind of provide that. And the integration of both of those things is happening right now.
Got it. Yeah. So they wanted to control the makeup of the data set because of those things like bias or even like you don't want somebody to be able to ask ChatGPT how to make a bomb because it's sitting in the database. And so they could put controls on kind of the front end of that, but they wanted to make sure too that the back end had the type of data set to train on that was going to prevent bias and dangerous things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are, forbidden on these platforms. There's a lot of folks that are hacking into those platforms to get around those things. But yeah, it's still, we didn't talk a lot about, threats, securities, or dangers of all these platforms, kind of focused on the positivity and the advantage that you can use these platforms for.
Let's see. How about, Cameron asks, how can businesses without a strong technical foundation begin to integrate Gen AI into their processes? I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about Gen AI is that You don't necessarily need those great technical skills. And if you're trying to do something technical, you can ask it how to do it, and use code interpreter and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is as simple as, integrating social media into your life, integrating email into your life. It's really is that sort of killer app when it comes to artificial intelligence right now. It's not the end all and be all by any means of artificial intelligence, but right now it's the app that everybody can use. It's for anybody.
Awesome. So everybody, that concludes today's event. As a reminder, the recording of the session will be sent along with the deck as well. And feel free to hit us up with any follow-up questions via email. And as always, thanks for joining us. Till next time. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.